BMW once led the F1 World Championship. 14 months later, they were gone. Forever. Just a press conference on Wednesday morning in July 2009 and silence ever since. And on the way out the door, they got scammed. While every major manufacturer in the world is rushing into Formula 1 right now, BMW keeps saying no. 4 times in the last decade they've been asked. 4 times the answer has been the same. To understand why, you have to go back to how it ended. And how it ended is one of the strangest stories in Formula 1 history. To understand what BMW lost when they left Formula 1, you first have to understand what they built. In 1980, BMW signed a deal with Bernie Ecclestone's Brabham team to supply engines. What they brought to the grid was not a purpose-built racing engine. It was derived from a cast iron block first designed in 1961 for a BMW road car, a family car, producing around 80 horsepower. BMW's engineers took that block and turned it into a 1.5-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder, the M1213. It made its race debut at the 1982 Canadian Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet crossed the line first. BMW's first ever Formula 1 win. The following year, Piquet won the Drivers' Championship, powered by that same cast iron block from a 1961 family car, the first time a turbocharged engine had ever won the Formula 1 World Championship. And BMW were only just getting started. By the mid-1980s, the engine was producing somewhere in the region of 1400 horsepower in qualifying trim. Paul Roche, the engineer who built it, later admitted they genuinely didn't know the exact figure. Their dynamometer maxed out at 1280. The needle had nowhere left to go. 9 wins, 15 pole positions, 1 world championship. But the FIA was already moving to end the turbo era. By mid-1986, BMW had seen enough. Their contract with Brabham ran out at the end of 1987, and that was that. But BMW would be back. And next time, they wouldn't be content just supplying engines. Next time, they wanted the whole thing. 10 years passed. In September 1997, BMW announced they were coming back to Formula 1, not as a manufacturer, as an engine supplier to Williams. Williams were the obvious choice. They had won 4 Drivers' Championships in 6 years with Renault. Renault had left at the end of 1997. Williams needed an engine. BMW needed a team. It looked perfect on paper. The BMW V10 made its race debut in 2000 in the Williams FW22. The early years were competitive. Juan Pablo Montoya pushed Schumacher in 2003, finishing 3rd in the championship, just 11 points behind the Ferrari. But the championship never came, and as the results stagnated, the relationship began to fracture. BMW grew publicly critical of Williams' inability to produce a competitive chassis. Williams pushed back. Frank Williams told Autosport in June 2005, "Our partnerships in the past with Renault and Honda have been more successful and cooperative. You never had this constant finger-pointing. We do not constantly ask why BMW had some 150 engine failures in 2000 alone. Both sides were pointing at each other. Neither was entirely wrong." BMW made an offer to buy Williams outright. Frank Williams refused. He had built that team from nothing, and he wasn't selling it to anyone. So BMW walked away from Williams and went looking for a team they could actually own. They didn't have to look far. On June 22, 2005, BMW announced they were purchasing the Sauber F1 team, 80% of the company, around $100 million. The remaining 20% stayed with founder Peter Sauber, operating from Hinwil, Switzerland, answering to Munich. For the first time, BMW had complete control over a Formula 1 program. 2006, their debut season as a constructor produced 2 podiums and 5th in the Constructors Championship. Solid for a first year. 2007 was better. McLaren were excluded from the Constructors Championship after the Spygate scandal. BMW were elevated to 2nd. Mario Tyson, their team principal, was characteristically honest about it. He called it a pretty empty 2nd place. But 2008 was different. The F108 was a genuinely fast car, strong aerodynamics, a powerful engine. And then came Canada. Robert Kubica first, Nick Heidfeld 2nd, BMW's first Formula 1 victory, and a 1-2 finish. After that race, Kubica led the Drivers' Championship, 42 points. Hamilton and Massa on 38, Raikkonen on 35. BMW were 3rd in the Constructors, 3 points behind Ferrari. In Munich, the board saw the numbers and made a decision that Robert Kubica still hasn't forgiven. BMW had a plan, step by step. 2006, establish. 2007, podiums. 2008, first win. 2009, championship challenge. They were 1 year ahead of schedule, and they decided to bank it. From the middle of 2008, resources were quietly redirected toward the 2009 car. The upgrades that Kubica was waiting for, the ones that might have kept him in title contention, never arrived. Kubica later reflected, "You have to use your opportunities because you never know in life when you'll get a second chance." He was right. They never did. BMW arrived at 2009 believing they were a championship team. They had every reason to. The plan was working. 2009 was supposed to be the year. It wasn't. The F109 was a disaster from the moment it hit the track. Slow, unpredictable, a car that looked nothing like what the data had promised. While Braun GP, a team that had been assembled from Honda's leftovers in a matter of weeks, dominated the opening races, BMW were fighting to get into the points. Kubica, who had led the World Championship 12 months earlier, was now regularly qualifying outside the top 10. Heidfeld was no different. The team that had looked like genuine title contenders had become a midfield team, almost overnight. So what went wrong? They had built the F109 over the second half of 2008. Tyson had even sent a test car to Jerez in December before any other team, with 2009 bodywork already fitted. BMW were first in the queue, but that didn't reflect in the pecking order. The 2009 regulations demanded a complete rethink of the car's aerodynamics, and BMW's engineering department was spending roughly 40% of its research capacity on something called CRS, Kinetic Energy Recovery System, a device that harvested energy under braking and gave the driver a short burst of extra power, around 80 horsepower for roughly 6 seconds a lap. BMW had been one of the strongest advocates for CRS. Tyson had personally blocked rival teams' proposals to delay its introduction. That decision had a cost nobody anticipated. While BMW's aerodynamics team was consumed by CRS packaging, 3 teams quietly found a loophole in the regulations: a double diffuser, generating significantly more downforce from the rear of the car. Braun, Toyota, and Williams all arrived at the first race with one fitted. BMW didn't get theirs until round 7, and it barely helped. The car had been physically built around KERS, high side pods, compromised packaging, a chassis designed around battery placement. When KERS was abandoned after the British Grand Prix, those compromises were permanent. BMW's own head of aerodynamics had warned this would happen. He was fired for saying so. The season was a disaster, 36 points all year, 6th in the Constructors Championship. The drop was not just a performance problem, it was a financial one. Prize money in Formula 1 scales sharply with finishing position. The difference between 3rd and 6th was tens of millions of euros in commercial revenue, and BMW had already lost their biggest sponsor. Credit Suisse, worth approximately 17 million euros a year, had walked away in January 2009. The banking crisis had hit their balance sheet, and Formula 1 was not a priority. BMW were spending several $100 million a year to be in this sport, and the returns, financial, competitive, technological, were heading in the wrong direction simultaneously. The board had a decision to make. On Tuesday, July 28, 2009, the BMW Board of Management met in Munich. The following morning, they held a press conference. BMW was leaving Formula 1 at the end of the season. Chairman Norbert Reithofer described it as a strategic realignment. He said premium would increasingly be defined by sustainability and environmental compatibility, and that Formula 1 no longer fit that direction. It was a clean corporate statement, and it was only part of the truth. The financial layer was real. The 2008 global recession had hit BMW hard. In the first quarter of 2009, they posted their first quarterly loss in a decade. Workforce reductions were already underway. Hundreds of millions spent on Formula 1 was very difficult to justify to a board facing those numbers. The sporting layer was real. A bad 2009 car, a failed KERS program, a sponsor gone, prize money cut. The return on investment case had collapsed in 12 months. But there was a third layer, one that rarely gets discussed. 2009 was also the year Formula 1 nearly tore itself apart. FIA President Max Mosley had proposed a budget cap, a £30 to £40 million spending limit, with a 2-tier technical system. Teams on the cap could run with fewer restrictions. Teams without it couldn't. 8 teams, including BMW Sauber, announced they would boycott the 2010 season and form their own breakaway championship. The biggest governance crisis in Formula 1's history. A deal was reached, then broke down again. The sport was ungovernable. On July 31st, 3 days after BMW's announcement, the new Concord Agreement was signed. BMW Sauber were the only team that didn't sign it, because they were already leaving. Max Mosley noted that had the budget cap proposal not been so strongly opposed, BMW's withdrawal might have been avoided. He left out the detail that BMW had been one of the teams doing the opposing. Mario Tyson, the man who had built BMW Sauber from the ground up, found out about the board's decision shortly before the press conference. The motorsport director of BMW last to know. Years later, he described the withdrawal as an error. The men who made the decision were not racing men, they were executives, and they pulled the trigger the same way Honda had pulled it the year before, quickly, cleanly, and without looking back, or so it seemed. When BMW announced their exit in July 2009, they also announced a buyer for the team, a company called Kodbak Investments Limited, British Virgin Islands registered, claiming to represent certain European and Middle Eastern family interests. The deal was reportedly worth 80 million euros. BMW's advisor on the sale was Rothschild, one of the most prestigious investment banks in the world. They vouched for Kodbak as a wholly reputable organization. Nobody looked too hard. Kodbak had also just purchased English football club Notts County for £1. It looked like serious money moving into sport. It wasn't. Inside the paddock, at least one person was already uneasy. McLaren's Martin Whitmarsh later said he started getting concerned the moment he heard Russell King was representing Kodbak, a man previously involved in a failed attempt to launch a Dubai-based F1 team that had also produced nothing. By November, it was gone. No funds, no deal. The 80 million euros didn't exist. The BBC later made a documentary about the man behind it. They called it the $1 trillion con man. BMW sold the team to Peter Sauber instead, for €1, not 80 million. Audi bought that same team in 2025. Same factory, same address in Hinwil for 600 million euros. BMW sold for 1. Audi paid 600 million. That is what leaving in a hurry looks like. So, could BMW actually come back? Let's look at what's real. The 2026 regulations increased electrical power more than any previous Formula 1 formula. For the first time, the hybrid system in an F1 car is genuinely close to what BMW is developing for their road cars. That argument, the one they've used to stay away for 16 years, is weaker now than it has ever been. BMW is already running hybrid hypercar machinery in the endurance categories. The engineering overlap with the 2026 F1 power unit is real. The infrastructure gap is smaller than it looks, and the competitive pressure is mounting. Mercedes have dominated this sport for a decade. Audi just bought the team BMW once owned. Every major German rival is on the grid. That is a boardroom conversation waiting to happen. The marketing case has never been stronger either. Formula One's global audience has more than doubled since BMW left. But here is what's also true. Van Meel said no 3 weeks ago. BMW has no F1 infrastructure, no engine program, no facility. Starting from scratch in 2026 would cost more than it ever has, even with a budget cap in place. They have said no at every regulation reset for 16 years, 2013, 2017, 2022, and 2026. Each time the sport changed, each time the door opened, BMW looked at it and walked the other way. The honest answer is this: the conditions for a return have never been more favorable, and BMW have never been less interested. Whether those two things are ever in the same place at the same time, that's the only question that matters. BMW left, and it's not looking like they will be back soon. But there's a Chinese manufacturer looking to enter Formula 1. We made a video about it. Watch it next.